Era of abusing the funds of the Social Security is a thing of the past. The registration is very important for your future well-being. Employers, it is their right to be registered on either the Federated Pension Scheme or the National Provident Fund, plus the Industrial Injuries Compensation Fund.
And also, when you have that, peace of mind, you own a plot, with Social Security, and then, they will build, a sizable houses, and then today, most civil servants are living with their families, on these mortgages. So that's how, we are able to improve the lives of Gambians.
Apart from the central bank, the Social Security is the biggest financial institution in the Gambia.
The Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation has contributed a lot to the economic advancement of this country.
Social Security was established, in 1981, and then it was, established through an act of Parliament.
Social Security is to provide social protection for our members at the age of retirement. That is the benefit, the idea of establishing Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation. Because like what they realized was, during there was a pension scheme called the 1950 Federated Pension Scheme for civil service. Now later the government realized that there is what about those who are working on the private? They are not covered under this 1950 scheme. How can we include them so that they can also, benefit something at the age of retirement? That in fact came up with the idea of establishing Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation. So there was an act of Parliament which was enacted in 1981, but it came into force in January 1982, so that it can cover those working at the private enterprise, so that at the time of their retirement, at the age of 60, you understand, they have to get something that they can rely on, you understand, to provide social protection for them. So that was the reason why it was supposed to be when you retire at the age of 60. But later there was a problem in 1985 when there was this redundancy, mass redundancy. They have to come up with, a service called, a benefit called redundancy benefit. So that those who are redundant, because of the ERP, something like the Economic Recovery Program, a lot of people were redundant, so that they'll be able to pay them something to protect their social, to provide social protection for them.
The mandate of the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation is guided by the SSHFC Act of 2015, which mandates us to provide social security to the membership. How do we provide social security to the membership? It is through separate funds. The first fund is the Federated Pension Scheme. That is where most state-owned enterprises, staff members contribute through, where you contribute, the employer contributes 15% of the employee's gross earnings. That is the Federated Pension Scheme. Then we also have the National Provident Fund, where all private sector employers register, wherein they contribute 10% of each employee's earnings, and then the employee will contribute 5%, making a 15% of the basic salary of each employee. That's the National Provident Fund. Then you have the Industrial Injuries Compensation Fund, which wherein each employer contributes $15 is maximum amount per employee for industrial injuries that employees have during work. So those are the three funds. However, we also have a housing fund where we are required to provide affordable housing to the general populace. So that's our mandate as far as social security is concerned.
Because all these schemes we run here, there is the Housing Finance Fund, the National Provident Fund, and the Pension Scheme, the Housing Finance Fund as well. So stakeholders, the customer needs to know how we function as an organization. And that is what our focus is mainly on. We create a media plan and we come up with the communication strategy, which a document we have developed, the communication strategy, which is mainly categorizing our members or customers into various groups. And each of these groups are targeted differently because they all have different characteristics. And so this strategy is there, and our media team follow this strategy and ensuring that our target approach is very successful in what we do. So these are some of what we have in place, some of the approach we take currently to communicate.
I'm the Director of Research and Policy Planning, and the main mandate of that department is to ensure that all registrable employees within the country are registered in the formal sector. For now, at the end of every 3 years, we are required to do evaluation of the schemes. That is the National Provident Fund and the Fidelity Pension Scheme. So every 3 years, that valuation is done. So basically, these are the areas that we normally handle as a mandate of that department.
Complaint could be received via the social media platform. For example, Facebook. The communication unit normally manages the social media platform and all the communication channels on mode. So customers, during our interaction with them on these platforms, or they may lodge a complaint or raise concerns. And that is documented. We have a complaint log where it is documented. And once documented, it is now given to the customer service unit, which is actually the custodian of this handle the managed complaints. We engage the relevant department. So if it's about housing, we see the housing director. If it's about payment of benefits, we see the Department of Operations. We liaise with them and channel the complaint to them, and then they will advise us on the solutions to take, and we then go and communicate that to the customers. So we ensure that the complaint is well tracked and is resolved at the earliest time possible, so that the customer is made aware and instill confidence in them that we are serving their best interest.
If you are a Gambian of 18 years up to age 60, you are working in an establishment which is registrable, registered with the AG chambers, you should register with Social Security. Whether in the private sector for the Provident Fund, and also those working in the public enterprises within the same age bracket too, they also have to register.
You have the different type of pensions. You have voluntary retirement, normal retirement, you have survivors, you have ill health, on marriage grounds. Those are the type of benefits we have on the pensions. Now what we do is we've sent a letter to all the FPS members. Like at the time of submitting their claims, they should make sure they attach all the necessary documents required in order to facilitate the payment of those benefits. Because sometimes you'll see they will complete the SS2 form, which is the termination form. So once you submit the termination form, that will tell us that that individual has retired or his service has been terminated.
Now the National Provident Fund basically is a kind of savings for the members. But however, the 10% paid by the employer is not deducted from this employee's salary. So it's an additional amount that may be free for the staff. So he pays 5% of his income. The employer top it up with 10%, and that is paid to Social Security. Now, upon retirement, what happens is that lump sum is paid to the employer upon retirement, and then that's project 59 comes in again. So when the person is 59, in the 59 years, the age 59, we make sure we complete all their benefits so that when they turn 60, that is paid. That's how the National Provident Fund basically works.
So there's a scheme called the Industrial Injury Compensation Scheme. That one you have to be an injured workman. If you are working, you sustain injury as a result of the work, you'll be entitled to compensation. And also, if you close work, you are covered by 2 hours. from your office to your home, or from your home to your office 2 hours, unless there are certain problems that are unavoidable. For example, the road is blocked, maybe the person is going, you divert your way. But if you take a straight way and you sustain injury or accident, you'll be compensated. But if you do it at your own discretion, that you are going to Brekama, you say, let me go to Bakau, and you have accident at Bakau. So that means you have deviated. Yes. So you will not be eligible. And under that scheme also, you need a medical board report that is going to determine the eligibility of your disability. So they will tell us what percentage you are disabled, then we'll pay based on that percentage. The payment is based on the medical report advice. Yeah. But Labor Department will always do the compilation of the document and send them here, and we process.
The Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation is directed through the Board of Directors. They develop policies. So the Managing Director reports to the board, who is appointed by the Ministry of Finance following the approval of the President. So we are under the line Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. The membership of the board, you have the chairman who is appointed by the President, but the others are through their various membership. You have a representative of the Federated Pension Scheme, appointed by the Federation Pension members. You have a representative of the National Provident Fund, also elected by the NPF members. You have the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Local Government, and then the Managing Director of the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation.
Ye suñale kamdu ñu biri ñu bete tala do ko la ñu may sa fete la do ko kay to bala
mbadu fatule be ñu ko cinéma fo no la mbadu ngata ko
ay ne ta bonni
ñu jube ba len suñale kan ndem pay tax sa ale pay tax bonni na jor mo ne wono
hani la men pay tax PAYE wala pay as you earn namo jo ika soto nyame do kulala income tax wala ika ganye wo ganye soto ka wele do ku bundalto abe wol kono karfa jo lomba lankangol leave pay allowance commission fanambe wala kono ibe do ku wala min kodo wala nyanta kanyi namo kuntu ile joto anin aya jo GRA aya kuntu karo menna asa jono wo karola wala karo membe wonoma janning ala tiltani nuno be timmal
abe wala nyama
ha amanda wala de dokula o dokula mu yalon ko abe nyi gambia banko ka andum ala jo adatita kabo darasi wile fula katawo yi santola inyantale pour yenyi namuju
sa ni adare de do wala min ko akayla kolo kum abuga jo jiare do
woto amunta be do wala men ko to wala be te sunya kan anin man sakunda minyin kala mutata wato wate ibe do wala men ko to ibe wala alamanna pour ayele nyi namuju mumbe tambita andum aba mume jola asiringo ite do kula fana ite kaiti wo kaiti sotola membe bola na GRA bulu ka itandi koite muna mu jolati ni sula tala wato men
ngoy dala gandol jo sa mba mek sola karifa o karifa ngana jam foy kan na kodo jo GRA la nyama ba foy buka jo
nyinki baro botanali Gambia Revenue Authority le nimmi lafta kuma sene sotola ila namoto e ka fami pay income tax akata e futa GRA la bundato membe sutiyari la Gambia Revenue Authority ibe namu kaningola bankola nyato tale
The challenges were mainly I think perceived threats received by employees. I think there was general perception that there would be huge redundancies And then also another challenge that I found here was division between staff, mainly as a result of, I think, the perceived threats of redundancy. That was one, and also there was this feeling that the benefits that staff used to enjoy, or the perks, I think I would call it perks, that staff used to enjoy, is now being, in one way or another, removed from them. So that was, there was a feeling of that also, unfairness in court, or the general feeling that their livelihoods were at risk of being removed from them. Yeah, those were the main challenges. And of course, the number one challenge was the financial situation of the corporation, which, to be frank, my predecessor had started revamping with a view to ensuring a better direction for the corporation.
In implementing these mandates of the department in terms of registration, for instance, you know, employers in general don't usually want to pay. So somebody who doesn't want to pay will always try to dodge the law, because they will always want to evade registrations. And when you don't register, you cannot pay contribution. When you are registering, we require you to submit to us a passport size photo, a birth certificate. If you do not have a birth certificate, you have to give us a national identity card. Or if you do not have any of these, we will still ask you to go to an alcalo, get a document from the alcalo to attest that this is the year you were born, and then the CFO will have to endorse that. So that one is also sufficient, it's also acceptable. So these documents, once they are not gathered, when you are coming to claim, we'll make sure that you get everything sorted before we can proceed to process your claim.
Sometimes they have different names, different age. You see, somebody will be working there, the employer, the record he has at the employment there with the employer is different from the one we have. The employer will retire him. When he comes here, we realize that he is less than, he should go in the next 1 year. So we have to write to them and say, no, as far as our records are concerned, this man or this member is not due for retirement. So we have to write to them and they have to reinstate them.
There was a time we even had a policy to require all employers to make sure that any employee who is working and is registered, they code their social security numbers, or if they are not registered, we will not accept their payment. But we have since reversed this policy, because some of them will not just even come to pay at all. They will prefer to stay, or they will go and just deposit the money in the bank and just say, this is for social security, they go. That one was creating more problems for us. So we have since reversed that. And we have since asked the inspectors to be more vigorous in the field, so that they make sure that all employees who are employed within the establishments are all registered. Because if they don't come to pay, that means they either constrained financially, or they simply just don't want to pay. But that does not mean that they will not be pursued. Because if you do not pay, we have to initiate legal actions against you. And in the process, you must have to pay.
We call them compliance inspectors. They normally follow up the payment. Yeah. But sometimes when the person is highly indebted, so you'll follow, you write sometime before you are done, he close. Or maybe if he's a foreigner, he will leave the country. So how do you recover it when the ban has already packed up and go?
So that is also another area. And sometimes you could also have logistic problems here and there. When vehicles are down, you will not be able to go out in the field, or maybe even in the rainy seasons when the place is wet and the inspectors' movement will be limited.
It is always difficult. Sometimes the members, the employers are not paying. So once they are not paying, that will also derail the claim process. That's why you can see some claims are filed because the contributions areas, especially pension, when there is an areas for maybe 2 months or 3 months, you cannot process it. You have to file the claim and pursue the payment. After when the payment is made, then you process the claim. So those are some of the challenges. So as a result of that, the office decided to establish a social security tribunal that will also make sure that those who are defaulted, They are taken to court to make sure they pay contributions for us to be able to pay the claimants. But still now, we are still fighting very hard to make sure that people comply. But even though it is also difficult because we have no control over the courts. And the other challenges we also have, like the members will lobby bring their claims, while the employer has not agreed to give them termination letters. Termination letter is a requirement when you are claiming under the National Provident Fund. So once you don't have the termination letter under OWB, we cannot pay. Sometimes we have to resort to writing to them or taking them to court.
When you close down institutions, sometimes it does not seem to make any economic sense, because in the sense that when the institution closes, the people who are working within that establishment will be off. They will not have any employment. So you are creating more burden instead for the government. So that is also another area. So we do not tend to be moving along those lines, trying to get some sort of powers from the government to be able to close institutions. We do not move along those lines. So what we intend to do, what we do is, we will initiate the legal actions against you in the courts, and when the court passes judgment, that is what is normally followed. But we do not use the route of the GRA, even though we should be collaborating with GRA in the sense that we have what we call a clearance certificate system, which is all institutions that are registered every year. When you are renewing your business, you have to make sure that all areas with social security and registration is completed. But for them to implement that, they will say they have targets to meet. They cannot do that for us. So the clearance system is not a strong system. You understand? That is why it is difficult for us to follow the path of GRA. We can equally require government to give us the powers to be able to close institutions, but we are not working along those paths.
We have a regional office that is at Basse, but for them, they can only receive the claim and send it here. But the process of benefit is not decentralized. It's centralized. It's done in the headquarters here. So let's maybe in future management will think of it and then try to decentralize the service. So that is also another challenge we have for people in the provinces. Normally, the projects are intended for people who need the house. There is the need, what we call the need and the affordability. So that is why they subject them to interview, whether you have already housed or you are not yet housed. The mode of payment, the period of payment is very long, maybe 8 years, over 8 years. So over 8 years you pay on mortgage, and some people even to pay that mortgage is a problem, but they need it. So those are the people you see they cannot apply because they will think of how to get it, how to get the money to pay. So these are the problems. Some people also are rejected. They will think, no, I'm rejected because they are not fair. Probably they look at your earnings because you have to tell us. If they are not convinced that you'll be able to sustain the mortgage, there's no need for them to give you. So if they also realize that you have how many houses or you have a house, but you can still afford it, that would not be fair to give it to you and deny others who need it and they can afford it.
Sometimes, you will give, these mortgages to people, and then down the line, that's human nature. Some people will default, maybe circumstances beyond their control. We are still grappling, with that challenge to see how best we can overcome it, but it's very, very difficult. So these are challenges. So if people default, for example, we know that, this person doesn't have the capacity to pay at all. We go in for repossession. What we normally do, we need to check your accounts, and then, we'll notify you. Even before we repossess, we have to give you at least first warning, second warning, and then, third warning and final warning. Then, we'll inform you that, you have to settle your debt within this period, this specified period of time. Failing which, your plot will be repossessed.
The mode of communication is also important.
We've realized such based on our communication via the Facebook page and the WhatsApp group, and also calls we get from the customers. Sometimes we see that there's some misconception out there. So from that, we try to devise means of reaching the customer. But some of the challenges we might face will be there will possibly be a breakdown of communication along the way. For example, the government did an announcement for their own pension fund, their pensioners. And then a customer called us thinking that it was from us. So we had to make it put it right as no, it's actually from the government, not from us. So those may be some of the things. So we may also relay a message, and some people may hear the message, trying to extend the message, but there may be error along the way. So what they may extend may not be accurate. So now that's why we create a forum. We have a customer forum and pensioners forum whereby people are allowed to join, and then we meet them directly. So that does help to mitigate or reduce the breakdown of communication along the way.
You have to pay.
Look at this. Look at my slip. I think I am cheated.
Yes, you are cheated. This is not what they stated on your employment letter.
It's okay. Just give it to me. I think Fatu must explain this better.
Go and see her.
Let me go to our office now. I think I am cheated. Look at my slip. I did not buy PE tax. Why did you deduct it from my salary?
No, Lamin. PAY is an acronym which means pay as you earn. Employment income tax is any profit or gain arising from employment. It includes salaries, wages, bonuses, leave pay, overtime, allowances, and commissions. The employer is charged with the responsibility of deducting the tax at source and remit to GRA monthly before or on the 15th of the following month.
Really?
Yes. Any employee who earns incomes from $2,000 and above per month arising from employment in the Gambia is subjected to employment income tax.
But what if my employer deducts my salary and does not pay to GRA?
Then it means your employer is cheating on you and the government. Anytime if detected, your employer will be charged to pay the full amount, and you cannot get any document from GRA indicating your tax compliance.
Thank you very much for making me understand. I think from now on, I will be finding out with you to know whether my taxes deducted from the salary are paid to GRA or not. And I will urge every employee to do the same. Thank you very much.
This information is from the Gambia Revenue Authority. For more detailed information about your pay income tax obligations, please visit any of the nearest GRA offices. The Gambia Revenue Authority, collecting revenue for national development.
When somebody works and retires, it should not be a burden to the government. So social protection comes to reduce that burden on the government. Because when you retire, you are given a pension at the end of every month. You are some sort of, reducing the burden from the government. Or you are paid a lump sum, you can go and start some sort of a business, at least for the rest of your life. But if this doesn't happen, it's going to be more difficult on the government to be able to support all these families, because you have to build all homes for all people, and you cannot do all these things. But if they have a pension, the little they gather, if even it's a lump sum, they can build some mud house, at least go and stay there. They will not require government to be given to be feeding them and all sorts of things. Even though we are currently limited only to the formal sector, because what we provide, the protection we provide, is only to the formal sector. The formal sector has not come, because the law is not there for us to cover the informal sector.
We have provided, more than 7,000 housing scheme to Gambians. And then today, Gambians are living comfortably, because our layouts are not just like any other layouts. Because at least we make sure that every compound has water and electricity, and then also in terms of the road networks, we create better road networks. And then it's like the middle income, most of these middle income families, most of them are residing in our estates. And how we contribute to national development is like we are trying to bring the housing deficit of the country. Even if we cannot eliminate, but to reduce it to a greater extent. And then this is also aligned to the national development blueprint of this country. So definitely, we have contributed, a lot, in terms of, national development.
Because we believe that value is best when it's co-created. So you invite your stakeholders, partner with them, share ideas, and you create value. And in that way, your service will be best adapted to their needs and requirements, rather than doing all along and alone, thinking that what you are doing is right. So whatever we do, we try to get stakeholders on board, and that has really helped us to sort of assure them and also give us the edge in terms of delivering services that is acceptable to them.
I think my biggest achievement is I have brought in stability in the corporation. I think without doubt. I remember we used to be in this social media each day, on either the radio or the Facebook or Freedom newspaper or other social media activities. However, that has reduced a lot. I think we have room to go, but there is stability now, especially at the level of management and staff relationship.
Now, to decongest the offices and to promote social distancing, we had to partner with Yona Financial Services to help us pay our pensioners close to their home. So this was mainly in the interest of the pensioners to make sure that when travel distance is reduced, and we also decongest the building as well. So that has really paid off, and that continues to run today. And in terms of the pensioners, they benefit from, for example, ease of access to their payments, so they don't have to travel all the way to Banjul or Bakau or our payment points. So now it's decentralized, and this has really added value to the service. And pensioners have given a lot of positive feedback on this.
And on the finances also, we have continued to increase the income of the corporation and also increase the assets base of the corporation. As I mentioned, the corporation income increased from 300 million to over 400 million between 2018 and 2019, then to about 500 million in 2020. And the assets base also has also increased along those lines. We moved from about $4 billion in 2018 to about 5 billion, actual 5 billion in 2019, up to now $7 billion in 2020. That shows that the assets base is also increasing, and you will all recall that in 2014 there was an actuarial valuation. The actuarial valuation actually is we are required to do that by the act, where the assets of the company is compared to the liabilities, mainly the pensions of the members, to make sure that there is sustainability in the contributions being paid. So we do that. We are mandated to do that every 3 years. In 2014, results showed that the funds were in deficit by over $500 million. That dropped to only about $29 million deficit also in 2017. There will be another one as of December 2020 for a new valuation, and we are sure that the funds would move to positive also. Most of the income comes through contributions made by members in the various funds, as I explained, the Industrial Injuries Compensation Fund, the National Provident Fund, mostly private sector employers, and the Federated Pension Scheme for the state-owned enterprises mostly. That is one form, but however, a major contribution of our income is also through the investments that we make. You should know that apart from the central bank, the Social Security is the biggest financial institution in the Gambia. So we have investments in banks and the shares in banks. We also have investments in the treasury bills. We hold billions of dollars in treasury bills. We also hold billions in the bonds. So those are all yield earning investments. So it's not only through contributions, but we also have returns through our investments in equity and debt. Equity are the investments through shares, whereas debt are the investments that we make through bonds and other investments like treasury bills. We are guided by our principles, and we have a board of directors who would approve any major investments that we are making. We have both an investment unit in-house to appraise the investments to be made, checking the returns for those investments and how secure are those investments to be made. After the investment unit clears it, then the board of directors would review the case and then give approval for any major investments. Yes, I think for the GTSC and the Ozone Bay hotels and the Sun Beach Hotel, they are 100% owned equity investments of the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation. We want to support government in the infrastructure development of the country, so our investment in GTSC to improve on the transportation infrastructure is one of that. The support in infrastructure as far as hotels are concerned is the Ozone Bay Hotel and the Sun Beach Hotel. However, I'm sure the GNPC explanation made was the investment in Gambia Food and Feeds Industries. That one was made jointly with GNPC and the Gambia Ports Authority. Although the Social Security is the majority shareholder, and for the Gambia Food and Feeds Industries, the investment is to improve on the agricultural value chain. It's for both rice production and a feed mill facility. It is at Kamalo on the Banjul-Serekunda Highway. So we are working on re-engineering the place, improving on the infrastructure, and but being led by private sector operators, so that we as equity investors would leave it to the private sector to build, operate, and hand back to the shareholders. We make investments in projects where we have adequate returns. The returns, the funds are not the government funds. The funds are owned by the members of the Social Security. So whatever investments we make have to give us returns. And not only the returns, but we also need the security of those investments. Because if you make investments and you have returns of, let's say, 20%, but you lose your original equity invested, that is of no use. So you should get your equity, should be maintained, the equity invested, and you have returns on top of that. So wherever investments are made, that is what we look for. So in case of road projects, for example, how Social Security can support that project would be through infrastructure bonds, which we are currently participating in. Government would make a request for hundreds of millions of dollars through the central bank infrastructure bond or treasury bill investments when they need more monies. So through those investments of ours, they can use those monies to improve on the national infrastructure. But we do not invest directly in road construction, for example. It can be done through infrastructure bonds, through the central bank, which we participate with any other institution, private sector. That's how these investments are made.
Now, Social Security is it's a very major institution in the country in terms of national development, because one, Social Security is very central. And if you look at the NDP, the National Development Plan, you see that Social Security and social protection is a key component. And then what we do, all our functions, primarily is about offering social protection to the members. You see, and look at infrastructure-wise as well. The NDP talk of infrastructure. But we also have, as I say, we're the largest real estate institution in the country. So far, we build a lot of infrastructure. We also, GTSC, which is the largest road transport company in the country, is owned by Social Security as well. So, and they have the largest road infrastructure as well, which is also based part of the, and most of the investment, if you track the investment, you see that Social Security has done a lot for GTSC. Ozone Bay as well, again, owned by Social Security, and we have investment in a lot of other key institutions. And all these have led to creation of employment and then building of more infrastructure as well, and the like. So these are some of the values I think we should continue to offer. to term of national and development as well. And most of the institutions, if you look at our relationship with the government as well, loans to other institutions, member institutions, or partner institutions too, has really helped them to also go out and meet their own objective or strategy. So we are contributing a lot in that domain.
As Al-Haji Aksigai, I'm a senior citizen. I've worked for this country for a long time. I've been a Minister of State twice, Youth and Sports, Fisheries and Water Resources. I've been in the diplomatic service, which I'm retired of. Being an ambassador in Guinea-Bissau, an ambassador in Sierra Leone, in Banjul, in Addis. I've been going around looking at what is happening with this voter registration, and I've been talking to Gambians that this is their franchise. Being an NPP, being a UDP, being a PPP, whatever, this is your right. The next day, which is the 4th of December, that's the day you will stand to use your card. But everybody should have a card. Every 18 has to have a card, a Gambian I mean, not a non-Gambian. Where you'll want to put your card on this 4th is your business, but make sure you get your card. Let everybody come out and register.
Banjul na set civilized jigéen ñi Banjul set nañ mun nañ liggéey mun nañ seen liggéey jigéen ñi Banjul yi mun nañ seen liggéey set nañ ci liggéey képp xam ne yaa ngi dem bitim réew fi ngay utee koŋ Banjul fii mata rek la ñoo lakkee ni mata maa ngi liggéey Banjul ëpp na 5 years fii de maa ngi jaay fi koŋ waaw ci koŋ bi rek laa yëngu ma si dara lu koŋ bi maa koy jënd bu tooy bi ma tàngal ndox ñu dugal ko ci ndox mu tànga ñu xoos ko maa suma ñaari doomi jigéen waaw wax ne ma lakka ko ma ñoo door a indi ko ci marché bi jaay ko na xaar client yi baax yi nag ñi may fekka si kon léegi daf dee yomba léegi mu jafe fen na nag ci waame bi demee kon dee jeex ci waame bi ñëwee mu tane suñ ko yi mag yi moom duñ ko dee téye fii daa ngoo téye ba Mali Bissau ñu door a awee Sénégal ak si Gambia mooy koŋ yu mag yi waaye koŋ ndaw yi moom suñ géej bi lañ ko dee téye moom suñ géej moom amul koŋ bu mag waaw maa ngi ko jànkuwante bu baax a baax parce que du daal affaire jën bu seeree rek mooy suñ problème bi koŋ seer na ko mënut a wàññi soo waxee koŋ seer na pour ñu daay jox jën tam ñoom tam nappiwuñu ñu koy indi luñ fa daj ñun xamuñ ko dañ dee gis gaay taxaw rek ñu ne koŋ ñoo na ñu dem soo ñoom suñu ñu ñëw niñ fay daj ñoom ñoo ñaa seen place def ko jaaykat yi jaaykat yi jaay ñu soo ñun moom pour waxaale jën sax pour wàññi ko te méttee ñu surtout su ko ñàkkee jën ñàkkee moo dee nekk moo dee cost di 4005 waaw su ko ñàkkee moo dee cost 4007 waaye su paree yaa ngi ko am 35 tegal ma muy 37 soo gisee ma dugg si business koŋ bi su ma dugg si business koŋ bi suma mag bu jigéen ku ma bokkan dee baay moo nekkoon ci liggéey bi yàlla def na jëkkëram génn àddina mu daal indi ma pour ma bokkaa moom ma liggéey ci diggante googu na ci 5 years boobu suma mag yàlla joo jàpp ko moom itam mu feebar bàyyi ma njabootam yëpp maa amee njaboot yi maa leen di fayal school maa leen di jox dépense maa def lu nekk daal maa nekk sa kër ga di leen toppatoo ba fuñ toll nii am nañu mag am nañu am jëkkër waaw sëyeeguñ na waaye am bari am nañu jëkkër foofu nag ñaar xale ji ba ñetti xale jigéen sëy nañ waaw ma gis nag toog naa amul benn njëriñ ñu jàppoo nag man ma téye si wàllu bi waaw waaw dama dee coono bi fa nekk mun ma ko wax sax parce que 5 o'clock ma dee fekk si sërkokaay 5 dama dee fekk si kër dama ñëwee 5 maa ngi ñibbi 7 suma kër ma demee 7 suma doomi jigéen yaa ngi fa balaa ma fekk mu tàngal ma ndox maa ngi ma sangu ñooy toog a añ ñooy toog a reer man moom suma aagee daal suma diggante suma borom mooy julli gi ma aagee jógee pour 7 o'clock ma sangu ba 7 jàpp julli gi tegal ma ataay ñu ma si xiimal ma la des ma aj si kaw la maa ngi ñoom tey maa ngi gërëm di leen sant suma doom yi mag yaa ngi fa suma doom bu jee bu tukkee sax suma doom yi mag yi ñoo may jàpp ñoo def loolu yëpp balaa maa ñëw dëgg yàlla waaw man tey suma mbokki jigéen li ma di wax képp ko xam ne am nga foo yëngoo na nga génn test naxut kenn test dafa baax jigéen nga jaay sa malaan nga enu sa bool nga ñëw jaay moo ko gën naa ne boo génnoon sax nga ñëw si tefes bi tey sax xamoo fa kenn sax nga taw ku mel ni man sax mbaa nga daje ku gën man ne ko dama bëgg a dimbal ba lii laa bëgg a def te ñu yërmande mu daw mu boole la nit mu jox la mbaa nga jëlee sa foriñ sax dem sa fish pie dina jar dem sa panquette dina jar moo nga toog si kër gi samba roma nga ñaan ko pate roma nga ñaan ko bu ëllëgee ñu toogee la ko amul benn njëriñ jigéen yëpp maa ngi leen di ñaan ñu génn ay test jaay am fu ñoo liggéey di def ko foo amul liggéey office am nga liggéey loo war a def lu leneen.
To get correct and accurate information as far as the vaccine is concerned or COVID-19 is concerned is you have to make sure that you get it from the people who are responsible in the response. That is from WHO, who are leading the global response efforts, and through their websites. That means they are accurate websites for that matter if you need sources, or when it is locally, you have to also get the information from your Minister of Health, which in the case of the Gambia, our own Minister of Health, and through that, when it comes to information, that is through the Directorate of Health Promotion and Education, and when it comes to the field workers, that is through the communication, health communication unit, the unit that I belong to and I work for. These are the people who are actually, leading as far as sharing information with regards to COVID-19 is concerned, and the vaccine, you can also get it from the expanded program on immunization. That is the Ministry of Health Office that is responsible for all vaccines in this country. And since 1979, they have been vaccinating people in the country. So if you need any information with regards to the COVID-19 vaccine also, you can reach out to the EPI, that is the expanded program on immunization in the Gambia, which are also housed in this medical and health complex here in Kotu, Central Medical Stores. These are the people who you can get accurate and correct and timely information from. And we also have a website, that is the Ministry of Health, the Gambia, and we also have a Facebook page, that is the Ministry of Health, the Gambia. We have Twitter, we even have YouTube and other platforms, WhatsApp platforms that we are using to make sure that information is accessible by the people, especially in this period of the COVID-19 pandemic.
My names are Karamba Toure. I was born in Gunjur, West Coast region. Of course, in those days, there's no birth certificate. As I said, I have an official birth date, but I'm not even really sure whether that's the correct date. It says 1961. Now I know, of course, I was born before 1961 because I have my contemporaries who have now retired. Myself, I'll be retiring this year. I was born in Gunjur, went to Gunjur Primary School, Gunjur Secondary School, then Armitage High School. I left Armitage High School in 1979. In those days, there was this civil service entrance examination that I took and went to clerical school, which is now converted to GTTI. After clerical school, then people don't look for jobs. It's the job that's looking for people, really. After clerical school, I was posted to audit as a clerk. Then we don't have those types of positions now as a clerk on grade 4. This was in 1981. I rose through the ranks until 2013, when I was June 2013, when I was appointed Auditor General. In education background, like I said, after I left my school and joined this audit, I did my master's in audit management and consultancy at the University of Birmingham, 2002-2003. I have my master's, and that is it. That is all about my education. National Assembly and the National Audit Office are the two sides of the same coin. This one determines taxes, levy taxes, receive them, and determine how they are going to be used. And this one is the one who guarantees that they are used in the way that is determined by this office. That's how important it is. It's an equivalent. You know, in some other jurisdictions, the Auditor General sits in the National Assembly too, as a minister. In UK, for example, he is a minister and sits at that cabinet level. That is how important it also is. We provide assurance to citizens that money that was taxed from them, their money, is being used properly, and that is very important. It is very wide because it says every government authority, every government institution should be audited by me. And wherever a government have a minority interest, even if it is 1%, I could go in there and audit without permission. So it's very wide. We are not doing all even now. Currently, what we do, we outsource audits to the audit accounting firms that are operating, private accounting firms that are operating in the country. Most of the parastatals are audited by them on my behalf. I appoint them and they do the audits and send the reports to me. We don't incorporate their reports into the final public accounts of the Gambia, but that's the idea. Later on in the future, they'll be incorporated if the reporting standards are harmonized. I moved the institution from a government department to an autonomous institution. That is by following up on the act, the creation of the act, which it was supposed to be done in 1997. It took us until 2015 really to get this act promulgated by the National Assembly. It toying and froing between us and the cabinet, and so it hasn't changed. So for us, that's a great achievement to move this audit department from the civil service, because essentially they are our clients. Abdul Koli helped a lot, the former Minister of Finance. He helped a lot in terms of getting this building even started or done. And even my constitution, because even my act, it went to a point that no cabinet member was brave to take it to the president. They said, this one we cannot take it. Abdul said, okay, I'll take it. So Abdul has been a bastion of support for us, and Abdullah Jallo, his PS at the time. First, we agreed with them that any unspent balance that we have money, the law requires that when the year ends, any money that has not been spent should be returned to the treasury. That's the law. So what we did was to negotiate with the Ministry of Finance to allow to retain the unspent money that we have. so that we can, for the purpose of building a house. So that was, they allowed to do that for over the years. That was started by my predecessor, not myself. But then I was the one responsible for finance at the time. So that was allowed and we accumulated. So by the time we went to government to say that we have enough money, we had got 21 million with us. I had kept 21 million aside. So I went to government and said, I have this. I need an office for myself. They said, how much? He came, drove a flat, and then provided. Yeah. And that's how we got this building, 78 million pounds. Government funded it. Fully government funded without this. And now we have our own accommodation, and that's why I'm very comfortable. But the icing of the cake is that we will be clearing the backlog of unaudited accounts of the public accounts of the Gambia. You know, Gambia have not, there was a point that there were no accounts. Then there came a point there was a backlog of something like 10 years. Now we have completed.